Ben, how you doing today, man?
Sean, good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. So how things work out for you guys at Wadapalooza SoCal?
Oh my God. That was our first time in competing. So we were in Miami just as sort of spectators and in networking back in, was that January? Huntington Beach is fantastic. Yeah, we had a 3-person team, a couple other guys at my company, and we podiums for the Masters RX division, which was very unexpected and very cool at the same time.
Yeah, nice work. I was able to watch you guys a couple of events. It looked like I think I watched you during the Erg Shoot event. I can't remember which one, but you guys were crushing it, man. You look good.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
So here's the question. How do you go from professional baseball to finance?
Kicking and screaming, I guess.
I bet.
Or no, yeah, interesting thinking back now, too many years. Like probably many in the CrossFit space, growing up, I had aspirations of being a professional athlete and got a chance to do a little bit in baseball. And the short story is that as baseball was going on, I was a criminal justice major coming out of Northeastern University in Boston. And so in my mind, if baseball didn't work out, I wanted to go to the FBI or the DEA or one of those really exciting fields. And it turned out that my wife thought she had a connection through one of her clients to a large brokerage firm here in the Boston area. And the description to me was, a chance to be an entrepreneur, kind of start your own business within the walls of a big firm. And in my mind, it was like the movie Wall Street or Boiler Room or one of those. We were dialing for dollars and a lot of exciting things happened. So yeah, I got the opportunity to get into finance as baseball was ending, and I guess the rest was history.
It's funny. I never thought I'd get to ask this question because we never get baseball guys on here. But the thing I've always loved about banking and finance is just the nerdiness of the statistics that come with it. And coming from baseball, you had to have some sort of inclination. Like baseball's the same thing, right? It's all about batting averages and on base percentages. Like I feel like there's a lot of correlation. Have you been able to draw on that at all as you've been in finance, just kind of the nerdiness and the math of it?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. I've always been kind of a nerd that, like, growing up, again, we live in a time where statistics now and all those metrics that you just rattled off there are at our fingertips, like seconds away, right? I'm 46. When I was growing up playing baseball, and you guys are, I think, about the same age, yet to get the batting averages, you had to wait for the Sunday paper, right?
Right.
So, what I used to do, I grew up in Portland, Maine, South Portland, Maine, big Red Sox fan. I used to keep kind of the scorebooks, as we watched WSBK TV in Boston, watched the Red Sox. So I used to keep statistics, and people thought that was weird. But certainly something in terms of, my dad's a former math teacher, a retired math teacher. So the analytical side has always been a big part of certainly baseball, but certainly something I carried to the financial side as well.
I bet you carried it over to CrossFit too, because I do the same thing. Like everything becomes a math problem. Every workout is a math problem for me. It isn't,
Yeah.
it isn't so much, how hard am I going to work? It's like, how many reps do I have to go before I take a break? How long is that break going to, how many seconds is that break going to be? Like, it's all math. And I get made fun of because I can look at a workout and they'll go, John, how long should this take? And I'll be like, 12:47. And I'll almost always be within 20 seconds. If I know the athlete or myself, and they stick to that plan, like, obviously things can break up.
I'm certainly not that good at analytics. I always overstate what I think I can do. So fortunately, that didn't carry over to CrossFit.
I don't know, man. You just finished third at Wadapalooza. You must be handling it pretty well.
I had some good teammates for sure. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
At what point did you decide now to focus on CrossFit athletes and CrossFit affiliates within your finance business?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been doing this over 20 years as a financial advisor. Started my career working for a big firm, working with a lot of business owners in the greater Boston area, and that started to expand out. You have a client, they have a friend that lives in California, so we take them on as clients. So about around the time that I started CrossFit back in 2012, it was through reconnecting with a college friend of mine who started a gym in the Boston area. And over those next few years, he started training some of the top athletes at that time, or people like Kelsey Keel and Tola Maracanio and a number of others there at the gym. And it was one day he just sort of said, hey, look, I was already helping him with his finances. And he said, look, I've got not only a few athletes here that could definitely use your help, just kind of organizing things and giving them some direction. But also my coaches are making a little bit of money and they could use help. So would you be willing to come down and just have a discussion, at one of our staff meetings, so all hands on deck meetings? So yes, absolutely. I mean, so that's really how it started. I showed up at his gym one day and, talked for maybe a half hour or 40 minutes and talked about the things that at least I thought, putting myself in their shoes were important things to focus on as they were making money, starting to make some money, starting to have decisions like, Jesus, should I rent? Should I buy a home? Paying taxes. Should I file, those things that, for us, here, that, especially John, I know you're in the financial industry, those are everyday things to us. But when people don't deal with those things every day, athletes being younger and so on, those are things they need a lot of help with. So I had the opportunity to come in and help some of Josh's athletes and coaches. It sort of just built from there. And we started to build out a section of our business to really focus on the CrossFit community.
Yeah, it's interesting. You were mentioning or kind of describing these affiliate owners and athletes that you're working with. And one thing that's always intrigued me about CrossFit is just the wide range of diversity that comes from these owners. Like some, it's a very low barrier of entry to get into CrossFit. So some come in with very little money. Some spend all of their money to open the gym. Some have a lot. Some are brilliant. Some are meatheads. Like there's all over the board, right? As you've been working with these affiliate owners, what surprised you most about, getting to know these owners and athletes?
Well, I'll tell you what didn't surprise me, and at least the folks that I we work with up to this point, is the level of passion that they have for the community as a whole and CrossFit in general. Some of the things that sort of surprised me in terms of like not with all, but with a good amount, was the lack of organization in terms of the financials for the companies themselves. And I sort of get where that comes from. You pour your heart and soul into doing what you love to do, knowing that you're impacting lives, and your own personal finances sort of goes to the wayside. And it's difficult for a lot of folks out there, especially today, where, like you said, John, the low barrier of entry. But today, there's a lot of other problems, right, that I know you guys know a lot about in terms of, real estate, right? And affording to, find a place to actually, have your gym and make it profitable. So it's multifaceted. I find that finances being all over the place and really putting which surprised me probably more than anything, was the putting their own personal finances aside and just focusing on their passion.
Dude, that real estate thing's a huge obstacle for owners right now. Sean, how long ago did you start? You started CrossFit well over a decade ago, right?
2007.
Yeah, and in Santa Cruz, right?
No, I was in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, that's right. How big was your gym? Tiny,
I didn't
probably?
get a CrossFit gym to start. It was like a boutique gym that was where the trainers started doing CrossFit.
Right.
And then the first CrossFit gym I actually went to was CrossFit Jacks, and it was in Atlantic Beach, and they've since moved to a new location. But the location they had was, like, they joke about it now. I mean, it was the word structure is doing a lot of work, when
Right.
you describe what it was. It was like 4 walls with an entrance.
Well,
They
the reason I ask is, a decade ago, these gyms were coming in and getting these small warehouse spaces for next to nothing. And that was the business model, and making really good money because real estate was affordable. In the last decade, it's almost doubled. And in the last 20 years, it's absolutely gone up 60, 70%. Like, how are you helping them navigate that? Like, that's just putting people out of business hand over fist.
Yeah, it's difficult. I can't say necessarily that we have some sort of cure-all for, you know, the environment that we're in right now, trying to focus on really optimizing what they're doing at the particular moment in terms of their own personal things. You know, for example, one thing I ran into a lot, and it's not just exclusive to CrossFit business owners and coaches, but, you know, the small business community is a lot of them, you know, if they have capital, a lot of capital just sitting in a checking account, not really earning. You know, that's one thing where, you know, that money just sits for months or even years and really not doing anything really after inflation, actually losing money. Other things that we've been able to do to really help incrementally is, you know, helping them understand the tax side of the equation. For example, I come across a number of affiliate owners that, you know, not really heard of ways they can file their taxes, like as an S corp, and be able to pay themselves a salary, but also benefit from some deductions that they wouldn't have if they continued on just as sort of a sole proprietor. So it's nothing that necessarily is a cure-all, but it's these like little incremental, you know, Sean, when I saw you this a few days ago, I might have mentioned to you that it's almost like in CrossFit, a great coach doesn't solve everything for you, but it gives you these little cues along the way that can make a dramatic impact over time. And that's really, you know, what we try to do in our conversation with folks is just try our best to find out what is the overall goal, you know, what are the things that you're really shooting for, and how can we help incrementally with you making decisions.
So with that being said, when you start to dive into different affiliate businesses, is there sort of one through line as far as like the biggest, I don't want to say mistake, but the biggest thing that they are overlooking or doing incorrectly? And you may have already mentioned in that list you just gave, but what is the most common thing that they need to clean up?
Well, this isn't necessarily financial, but the ones that I've come across that you would put sort of in the I don't mean to be but we're in the struggling category is, as a business owner, trying to do everything yourself and not leaning on and seeking out people that can really take a lot of the responsibilities off you. And I'm not saying exclusively just the financial side. I'm talking about just like great, you know, you're building and helping evolve great coaches when your system, and actually paying them as much as you can to carry the business for. That's one thing that I've noticed. And you know, obviously with Josh Flossberg, who I mentioned before, who introduced me to CrossFit, he's part of our company and also owns 5 affiliates here in the Boston area. He knows full well, and he's done a great job at developing his coaching staff and developing a leadership team. Yeah, I really think, for me, still the outside looking in, that's where I can point a lot of his success to, is being able to bring in great people and rewarding them for the work that they do.
In the good old days, you just pay a coach with free workouts and fit aid, you know, like that's how they did it. Yeah. Well, it's true though. That's what they did. Or, you know, t-shirts, you could come in, work out whenever you want. You just have to run a couple of classes, not even recognizing, you know, the potential damage they could be doing to their business, one, from not paying someone. And then secondarily, to your point, you know, that I think a lot of gym owners, or a lot that I've talked to your point, they underpay without thinking, you know, they're thinking, all right, this is, you know, payroll is a very large expense line on any P&L. Doesn't matter what size your business is. It's one of the biggest expenses you're going to have. And in a small CrossFit gym, it's a significant line. And so they think, all right, if I pay these coaches $15 an hour, I'm saving $7, $8, $10 an hour times that many coaches. Here's so much I'm saving a year that's going back in my pocket, without recognizing that those that are working for the minimum aren't invested in your gym. They're not invested in your best interest. And now you're looking at, instead of being a future 10 or 20-year affiliate, you're going to be a 3 to 5 year affiliate, because you're going to have a lot of dissatisfaction amongst your, you know, your employees, as well as the people coming in to work out, because they're not getting the experience you want. And I think it's hard to explain that to an affiliate owner in a way that makes them convinced they got to pay somebody more for the long-term health of their business.
In any business, right, that really has sort of a transient, like a rotation of coaches coming in, you know, coming, staying for a while and leaving, and so on and so forth. That right, to your point, John, that doesn't really bode well for building relationships in the community, right? And that's one thing Josh, you know, you go back, and he opened in 2012, And there's a fair amount of coaches that were there then that are still there now, which I think is incredible.
If
Are you
some-
guys do? Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Well, I was going to say, if someone came to you right now and said, "Hey, I want to open a CrossFit affiliate," what are sort of the 3 things that you would say, okay, you have got to know these 3 things or have at least an idea before you even go down that road?
Oof. You know, I would first and foremost, I would say I would ask for the business plan, right? What is it? A detailed business plan. What, with first and foremost, what does the 5-year picture look like, right? You want to get there, and what are the things that you think today, whether you bring your own money, you get partners or whatever it is. And I say that because and I'm sure you guys have seen this as well too. It's like the CrossFit, I think, used to be in I don't want to call it the heyday. I kind of still think it's the heyday. It's been challenges, but
Yeah.
I think CrossFit is as strong, can be as strong as ever. But there was a mentality, right, as you're referring to the olden days in CrossFit of if you build it, they will come, right? The low barrier of entry, real estate, much different. CrossFit affiliates opened all the time, and you open one up, and good things can happen. I do think that's a little different now. I mean, you see a maturation in that business, and I think we can, see a recovery too in terms of what's happening. But I think you've got to be a lot more intentional with the business plan. How you're going to go out and interact with the community. Your hiring process, who you're looking for, what you're going to spend your money on, and have those metrics in place before you get started, for sure.
Yeah. Also really hard to get somebody to understand. Right. Like getting people to buy into this stuff is so difficult. And, because they think, all right, this is going to be so much fun. I get it open. Why do I need a 5-year plan? And they're not thinking about, just some simple examples. Like what's the population density of where you plan to open? Do you physically have enough people in that area in the age groups you need that want to be fit? Like that's an important component for a gym. And then very closely related to that, how many competitors do you have in that area and who are they? And I know like as CrossFitters, we have no humility. We think we have the best fitness methodology on the planet. So we don't give a rat's ass about Orange Theory or F45 or any of those guys, but you still have to take it into account. You have to, and recognize, at some point there's going to be a cap of how many people you're going to have, and you might have to move again. And so that plan is so important to get them thinking about, how they're going in this. And I would also add to it, what's your safety net? Like, I don't believe in burning the boats when it comes to starting a business. Like you have to have some sort of emergency reserve. And if anyone needs a proof point, just look at COVID and how many CrossFit gyms went out of business in less than 6 months.
Right.
It's insanity because they just weren't prepared. And, no one could have predicted that, but you don't have 6 months reserves, you're done,
Yeah. And I don't know the actual statistics on that, but I certainly believe you for sure. I mean, and small businesses in general that either didn't have the reserves or the access to lines of credit or things of that nature to help keep you afloat during that time. God forbid we face something like that again, but we'll face something, as we do in the markets and the economy, right? It's always the same. It's a different flavor, but it's always a similar type of challenge that we see more frequently than we like to admit, in the economy. And having, I think that's a great point, John. It's simple, right? Another simple thing, having 6 months worth of expenses set aside in a high yielding money market.
Yeah.
On one hand, that's really easy to say, but you're an entrepreneur, you're passionate, you're driving forward, you're running out of hours in the day, and these little decisions that can go a long way just get pushed to the wayside.
Yeah. So tough. And I would be interested, and we'll talk about it later because I have another topic we're going to cover, but I'd be interested in how many affiliate owners actually have this safety net. I have a good sense of what small business owners do because I talk to them almost every day, and it's a really low number. And I can't believe, CrossFit affiliate owners are any more savvy than every other business on the planet. And that's no offense to CrossFit affiliate owners, so nobody get pissed at me, but there's a lot of smart business people in the world. And if everybody else doesn't have it, the CrossFit gyms likely don't. And that's a real risk to everyone's business. It doesn't take much, particularly in, you've said it, in the world we're living in now. I doubt I'd love to say I doubt we'd ever see another COVID, but you could absolutely see a really significant economic event. And well, while it doesn't feel this way to the three of us, to most people that go to affiliates, that's just discretionary income for them. So it's the first thing they cut, is my point. Like, as soon as you got to save money, whether it's 150 to $200, I can put right back in my pocket. And that's when you get crippled, you know?
And all of us as human beings, right? We have short memories, right? And okay, well, that was, if it was 2008 and 2009, the global real estate and everything collapsed, or it was COVID, that quickly moves out of people's minds. And if they hadn't been birthed by something like that again, they probably don't fully respect, that can't happen to me, and so, I get a visitor here. He knows. All right. Yeah, back downstairs for a second, please. Back downstairs. About a half hour back downstairs. I'm sorry, guys.
No. We love it. We both have kids. How many do you have?
Well, he does. I've got 4 kids, and he does a lot of burpees with me. So he's nice. Well, we're very proud of it.
Well, you're a better dad than me. Mine wouldn't dare do burpees with me. Sean, have you made your kid do burpees yet?
Yeah, he's done them, but I don't think he has much interest in. Like, he says, well, let's go work out, and basically it's him going outside, swinging on the rings, and jumping over a box, and then we're done. So there's really not,
That's perfect at that age.
Yeah, which is fun. I don't try to push him. Like, if he wants to do it, we'll do it. If not, that's fine too. Like,
I will.
He's fine.
He's 5.
Yeah.
Okay, he's 6. So right there with you. Yeah.
Nice.
How are the other 3?
I've got, so he's 6. I've got an 11-year-old girl, 12-year-old boy, and then 14-year-old girl.
Wow.
So you I'm sure if you're like me, you already have college planning right up here in the front of your head, just going nuts, thinking how are you going to put these 4 through?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. The pregnancy just turned 7.
Oh, that
James did not mistake.
Oh, don't make that mistake again. He's going to pick the end of it.
right.
Yeah. That. So my business partner, Jim Bodie, his first, he got kids a little bit older than me, but his first just went off to school this fall. And that comes along quick. I'm sure you'll right. Maybe it's here before you know it. And yeah, having we talk about setting aside safety nets and making the right financial decisions, but in college is a big one, right?
This is a true story. My youngest daughter, when she was looking for colleges, she narrowed it down to the University of Cincinnati, which is where she goes, and Purdue. She loved them both. And she comes home, she's like, Dad, I just can't decide. These schools are exactly equal. And I'm like, no, baby, they are not exactly equal. And she's like, well, how do you figure? I'm like, well, Cincinnati's in state. Purdue is out of state. It's going to be twice as much for you to go there. If they're equal for you, you're going to Cincinnati. And it was a great decision. She loves it there. And, I say this often to people, clients, or even, people work with me. But the greatest gift you can give your kids is to get out of college debt free. It really is. And if we're talking about affiliate owners here, and I see a lot of them with kids, and that's one thing, anyone listening, if they haven't started this planning, man, you want to give your kid a generational gift. That's it. Get them started in life with no debt. Cause I see kids every day coming in at 26, 27 years old with hundreds of thousands of dollars of student debt, and they'll never get rid of it.
Huge burden, right? I mean, that's such a great point. It can be an incredible weight, right, on someone, and having that on your back when you're getting out there in the workforce. And I think, people approach debt in different ways, but there's certainly, I'm sure you agree, debt for a lot of folks has an emotional component to it. And, allowing your son or daughter to get out of college debt free and allow them to spread their wings without having to worry about taking a risk and being an entrepreneur or a business owner. Oh, I can't because I've got this debt to pay off first. I have to take a 9 to 5. And, it's such a great point, John.
She came home from school one day or for, a weekend or something. I was just asking her, how are your friends? What are you doing? And Cincinnati's a big engineering school. And she's like, some of the engineering students are making fun of me because she's going for early childhood education. She's going to be a school teacher. I'm like, what are they making fun of? She's like, well, they're all telling me I'm not going to make any money, and they're all going to be making $70,000 or $80,000 as soon as they get out of college. I'm like, babe, let me explain this to you. They will likely be making $70,000 coming out of college, and you'll likely be making $40,000 to $50,000 coming out of college. You'll have no debt, and they're going to be coming out of pocket for a significant amount every single month. Trust me when I tell you, what you're bringing home will be more than what they're bringing home. So it isn't about status and salary. It's about, as you know, like preparing for the future. And when, when you get into the workforce, being able to invest early so you can retire early, it's not a hard dynamic, but these young kids coming out, I think it relates to the affiliate owner conversation we're having here. They just don't think of it in those terms. They just see the shiny object in front of them and think, all right, that's the target, without thinking 5-10 years down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're in an environment today too. I mean, there's so much opportunity, in my opinion, right? I mean, you look at some of the folks that were able to be nimble, like during the COVID years. I mean, the social media aspect of things, being able to start businesses online, and the CrossFit affiliate owners that kind of really jumped out of their seat and said, all right, I'm gonna, adjust my training and do classes over the internet and things of that nature. I mean, we have such opportunities, as younger folks today getting out in terms of running a business online and such. I think it's incredible.
Where do you think, having spoken to a lot of different affiliates and their owners, where do you think CrossFit itself can be more supportive, or at least, I guess, offering things that affiliate owners can use to sort of help navigate some of these, financial obstacles? And I know that they have done some things, and they're doing a lot better than when I got involved back in 2000, when, the first gym I ever, like, quote unquote belonged to was really like top, opened it up and was like, I just want a place for my friends to work out. And it was dirt cheap and there was no business plan. But what do you think, where do you think CrossFit itself can help these affiliates out more?
Yeah, and by no means am I'm an expert on this issue, and maybe CrossFit is doing some of these things. We mentioned the real estate issue before, right? And I don't have the answer for that, but I think more can be done in that respect, in terms of, helping, the affiliates and driving new CrossFit affiliates in helping on the real estate side. And I know that there are some resources today that weren't there a number of years ago, but that one of the first things that I did with Josh and his gym is install a benefits plan. And so I think part in any industry of attracting good, talented people is having things that you can reward those employees with. So something you just mentioned a moment ago, being able to sock away a little money in a 401k plan or something similar. Having legitimate benefits, for coaches can help drive that business for sure. And the other thing that comes to mind, I don't know if this happens or not, is there more that CrossFit can do? And by no means am I being critical of it, because I don't know the answer to this. Can they help drive more leads from the community into the box, right? Is there a system in place today that, I know there are a lot of CrossFit box, but there are a lot less nowadays, and there's a lot more competition in the high intensity space, high rocks and otherwise. But can CrossFit Inc. do more to help differentiate, the CrossFit affiliate, and actually help drive more leads into gyms? Nothing I just said there was crazy, but and I don't know if some of this is already happening, but I think those are three things certainly, pop in my mind when I hear, hey, what if I'm a CrossFit owner, what are some of the things that would really help me?
Yeah.
They've invested a lot of money in the lead generation piece. They claim, to my knowledge, I mean, I don't have full details, so, I can't really go into it with a lot of confidence, but I have heard them speak on their affiliate calls or whatever about, they're thinking it should be driving, 3 to 5 new leads into the affiliates per year, or, to get them actually 3 to 5 new members. You multiply that out, over a number of years, it's a significant amount of revenue going to the gyms. And they have done a much better job, if you go to their website, of helping people come in, understanding the true cost of it. Like, they have a budget that's like an estimated budget that's on the website. And what blew me away with it is it gives you what they're saying are the actual numbers. Again, I haven't seen their P&L or their books, but it's just what they're telling us, is that most gyms, if I remember these numbers right, have 167 members on average. So that's the average. So keep in mind, if you're looking at a bell curve, you got some gyms out here that have hundreds and others that have 50. right?
Right.
But that middle is that. And that same group, when you factor it all out, all the expenses, payroll, building, utilities, everything, equipment, whatever, the average affiliate owner, if I'm remembering right, is like $57K a year is what they take home. Blew me away thinking about that. But it makes sense, right? When you really break it down, I mean, that's probably about right.
Yeah.
And so as you were, saying that, getting someone benefits, I was thinking, man, what a terrific thing to be able to help someone with. If you're making around 60,000 a year, which is what that is, and you don't have insurance, you're screwed. Right. So being able to help them with that benefit piece, that's really hard to navigate, is really expensive. It's very confusing. And to have someone like yourself to help them with that, I think it's just a monster advantage and help to affiliate owners.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just having the opportunity for the educational piece for your coaches, right? It's like, because that a lot of affiliates, okay, if we can set up a retirement plan or benefits, doesn't mean that they have the capital or the cash flow to be able to match a significant amount in their accounts. But even that, just the benefit alone of providing the opportunity for your coaches, who, like a lot of folks in their 20s or 30s or whatever, are relatively uneducated about the financial world, right? To understand what a 401k is, or, even something as simple as a compound interest calculator, and say, hey, if I put away X, per month, a small amount, what does that equate to years down the road? I know it's been said a lot, and I think it's still the same. These things aren't really taught. And I don't know, at your gyms, it's that helping the CrossFit affiliate owner, from a financial firm perspective, right? It's not a highly lucrative endeavor, right? But I think also it's something that is just terribly needed, to help, these folks continue to get off the mat and to keep growing their businesses. And every little piece can be impactful.
I think most CrossFit affiliate owners or members think a 401k is a really long run. I guess.
I don't know that. That's true.
They think that's what we have to do in High Rocks, probably.
That's right.
I mean, you're a finance bro. What's your opinion on how Berkshire has handled CrossFit since they purchased it? Do you have any thoughts about how they've done compared to, how a PE firm should have done?
Jeez. Again, I don't want to come across as critical because I don't know all the details, right? But I would say that, and again, I'll also say that I like many, I come from like the old school CrossFit, watching a lot of Greg Glassman videos and the Rich Froning documentaries and just being in love with that stuff. And, it's tough because I don't have a good feel on, how much into CrossFit the folks at Berkshire are. I've met a few of them, and they're the folks I've met are fantastic people. I think what I would say is missing is that is there a tremendous passion for CrossFit behind the scenes from a particular private equity company, or is it about just trying to squeeze as much profit as you can out of it? So again, I'm not an expert on it, but my impression of it is that it's somebody in the background as PE firms go that probably didn't really understand exactly what they were getting into when they got into it. That's my educated guess. And I don't know how far off I am there, but I think probably a lot of people would agree that, hey, CrossFit over the years lost some of that, presence. And now, being in Albany for the games and being at Wadapalooza the last few times, I do think the community is very, very strong, and it's a lot further ahead than I think that a lot of folks give it credit for. I think we're, ripe for moving higher.
If this changes hands and goes to another private equity company, what do you think then, other than what you just said with the passion, what does need to be present there for it just not to be, we're just going to try to squeeze as much money as we can out of this, and we're going to repeat the process that we just went through?
I don't know. I know that I've heard that there's deals on the table and there's things being talked about in terms of more selling and so on and so forth. I think to a certain extent, CrossFit has to go back to the grassroots and rebuild. And I don't have the answer for how that can be done other than I don't know of a stronger community than the CrossFit community. And so pouring all of your eggs into that basket and making it all about impacting the CrossFit gym goer. For me, it all started at the CrossFit foot. It going into CrossFit Back Bay in Boston and changed my life in so many ways. And that's translated into me being able to impact other people's lives. I think whoever buys it needs to understand how important that CrossFit affiliate is and pour everything they possibly can into that. I never met Greg Glasscraw. No, I was enthralled by all the videos and things and all the way up through what he was all about from the outside looking in. And I know he talked a lot about that same thing in terms of making it all about the affiliate, all about the person going to the gym. That's where we're getting back to.
I think you actually hit it in your first answer about Berkshire, what the next one needs to do. I completely agree with your assessment that if I could put one thing on Berkshire that they did really poorly is they have the appearance that no one within that firm knows jack shit about CrossFit. They don't do CrossFit. They don't come to affiliates. They don't work out. They just handed it off to, Don and Dave and said, good luck. Right. And you got to be involved. Like whoever buys it, whether it's private equity or somebody else, whoever's the face of that business needs to be working out with the rest of us. That's part of it because you need to know they're part of the community. And I think you're right about the grassroots thing, Ben. I really do. I think they do need to get to grassroots, but I think those of us that have been around for a while have to recognize that grassroots is going to look a little different because we've advanced 20 years and they do need to provide better and different value to the affiliate owners. Like an example would be the next guy coming in would be an idiot to not provide some sort of back office system for all affiliate owners for free, like Wodify or Push Press or whoever all these gyms use, right? Provide it to them for free. It's just part of your affiliate package. It's going to give you all the data you need. Data is king, right? It's going to help you build an email list. It's going to help you understand what your members are doing, what their issues are. You can have your little notes in there about, their individual problems like shoulder issues, whatever, just to help you better manage your business. And then CrossFit themselves benefits because they also collect that data. And again, data is king. So then they're building a database of understanding who really loves CrossFit, who's a casual CrossFitter, who just drops in once a year, that sort of thing. And that's where the real value is, both for affiliate owners and for the business itself when, as they're trying to generate revenue, raise capital, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. So those types of resources, right, to take the pressure off of the gym itself and allow the affiliate owners, the coaches to do what they are great at doing and provide those resources so the sport can continue to grow.
My fear of what's going to come out of all of this, and I don't have any more knowledge than anybody else. Like, nobody talks to me. I'm just making guesses like the rest. And I think most people's guesses are still wrong. But my fear is we're going to end up with 4 or 5 little CrossFits, right? Like somebody comes in and buys CrossFit LLC and now they own the brand name. And that part is a brand name. But whoever buys it isn't the person that everybody wants to buy it. And so now Mayhem leaves, Hard Work Pays Off leaves, Proven leaves, NC Fit, like whoever, has a lot of gyms. And now you've got 5 or 6 groups of affiliates that are 1,000 or 2,000 affiliates strong. And the name itself, CrossFit, has very little. That's my fear when this all is done.
Yeah. I think a legitimate one, right? I mean, because you have whoever ends up buying it, like you said, if it's another Berkshire, I mean, you're with folks that don't seem to be heavily involved in, like you said, working out every day and so on and so forth at a local gym and visible. You have these larger groups that have emerged over the years, right? And that, I think that's a legitimate fear, breaking off into all these different sections and the CrossFit name dwindles. And I think that could be the worst thing in the world, really, from somebody that's been doing it for a long time.
what would it do to an affiliate owner who's had that name on his or her door for a number of years to all of a sudden pull that off, and it's just whatever fitness center or
People are doing it though, right? I mean, people
are.
be affiliated, right? Quite a few actually. I suppose the more high profile ones that have done it, they've already built a pretty large community of people at their gym. I don't know how that has or has not impacted the growth going forward. Have they lost a lot of members because of it, so on? I would say if the gym that I was working at dropped the affiliation, you know, I love the CrossFit name. I love the ability as I travel quite a bit. I travel to go to a different city and I drop into a community and it's a CrossFit community. It's fantastic. That's one of the greatest things I think about, the CrossFit itself is anywhere you go, you have a community of people that you can plug into. Yeah, it's a great question, Sean.
I was thinking about that this morning. Sean and I joke some. I've been battling online. I'm using the term battling really lightly. Been trolling, probably is a better way to put it. Frank at the CrossFit Affiliate Collective, I think we kind of briefly talked about it, but Frank's got this idea, and it's actually not a bad idea. I'm going to say that out loud. Like it's not a bad concept. What he wants is all the affiliates to leave CrossFit and join his nonprofit and bring back to Grassroots, right? Like you're describing. And so now you've got, a board of directors instead of a CEO that are managing the business, and they're running it like CrossFit used to run. That's a very brief, the gist of it, right? But to Sean's point, my fear when you do that is you lose the name. And you can get away with that when you de-affiliate with one gym or maybe 2 or 3, because you still got people in your area. But when you got 5,000, right? Or however many if they all decided to leave, that'd be almost 9,000 gyms. Like, Berkshire's not going to give up the name simply because those gyms leave. That name still has value, significant value, even without the affiliates. So I guess that for me, that's the real question is if we had this breakup and you have, kind of larger groups, like Mayhem would probably survive, but what would happen to those remaining 4,000 or 5,000 gyms if they went with that group, now called Unbuyable, by the way? What would happen? What would happen to them? Do you think like this kind of Green Bay Packers model of nonprofit collective, does it have any legs at all?
Well, I mean, on the surface, it really appeals to me, right? The idea that you could have all of these CrossFit affiliates be part of a sort of an ownership group, like our season ticket holders, that are so passionate about what it is financially to make that work. If, like you were saying before, right, you look at I think you were making a reference to, what is the average CrossFit affiliate, how much they have in members. But again, that's only an average. So what's the average revenue of an affiliate? Okay, but that's only an average. So you've got tails on both sides, right? And so I don't know the statistic across, I'm sure you guys know a lot better than me, that, okay, well, how many gyms or an affiliate owners wouldn't have enough capital to actually buy into something like that? And what would happen to them given that, they wouldn't be able to work that out? I think in order for something like that to work, I think that the financial side has to be really, really smoothed down. I don't have the answer to that for sure.
Well, look, the name CrossFit's worth 200 million. Let's just call it 200 million, right? We have a pretty good idea that's probably what it's worth, right? So to your point, do they have the capital? Like the average small business owner, you talk to them all the time, right? The average has less than 40,000 in reserve.
They're just getting by.
Yeah. They don't have anywhere near 40,000. So if you had 5,000 affiliates that wanted to buy that $200 million business, they would all have to go in with 40 grand. Out of pocket, here's 40 grand. Let's buy the name, because my contention is, whatever name you pick for the business, it will not have the strength and power that the name CrossFit that's been in the market for 25 years has. People know what CrossFit is. They got no flipping idea what Unbuyable means. And there's real value there. And that's the problem. Like, how do you get past that $40,000 gap? You need to actually get the name CrossFit, which is where the value is. And by the way, if you put CrossFit out of business, you're also losing the level 1 level 2, like all the training and education that come with it, and all the revenue that's behind that as well, which is also very significant for the business. Like it's real obstacles to overcome. Like I don't see how you can generate enough revenue just from affiliate fees in a startup business that makes it successful without the training, without the name. I just don't see how it can happen.
Yeah. And so it gets back to the original thought, right? Is that how can whoever ends up buying CrossFit re-engage with all of the affiliate owners and provide material enough resources where they can look forward and see, okay, I think they figured this out. You know, we're driving leads, we're, as you said, you know, providing benefits and resources, we're helping you figure out the real estate equation. Yeah, it's a really tough concept right now.
When you think of a collective like that, and I'm not just trying to pick Frank's points apart, by the way, I'd might even want if I wanted to do that and just do it face to face, but I've been like really going through my brain, trying to make sure I'm being fair around the finances of this. So if you had a board running a nonprofit that's going to have 5,000 plus affiliates, you mentioned earlier that you would ask any small business owner for a business plan, which I would clearly want from them as well. What would you want from those board members, like experience wise or background or just, you know, kind of depth of understanding?
Well, first and foremost, I think for the CrossFit community that I know, it would have to be your high profile folks. You know, if it's me sitting here, it's like guys that I, you know, were, you know, introduced to early on that I thought were instrumental in driving the sport. Guys like Austin Maliello, right? And Rich Froning and Chris Spieler and all these. I think that on one hand, you have to have a fair amount of those types of people involved at the top, in my humble opinion. And you also have to have folks, of course, that understands, you know, business and understand what it's going to take to drive revenue back to the sport. So when I think about a business plan, I think, you know, that the people that are on the board directors level, I think what your question is that it's going to be a mix of those two types of people. I think where, you know, Berkshire doesn't like resonate with Benny is that nobody knows really who they are. Yeah. People know who they are, of course, but people in the CrossFit community, that did they have your reputation of being involved with CrossFit? You know, that would be really difficult if that wasn't the case.
Yeah, not only do people not know who they are, but, you know, there's this kind of false narrative that all private equity is evil. And so everyone's, you know, kind of latching on to this. You know, it's kind of like saying CrossFit is dangerous because you heard somebody got hurt once. Yeah, some private equity companies have really effed up some businesses. Like that's a fact, but they're not all evil. Just like CrossFit is not dangerous, but there's this kind of myth that it is. And so I think you're right. I think the fact that we don't know them and you've got that, you know, side by side, it has really hampered what they're doing.
There's a lot of people in private equity too, though, that, I mean, in the financial businesses like private equity, you have a lot of men and women that are ultra marathoners, you know, hard charging, passionate about fitness and so on. Those people are out there. And so I agree with you. I think that, you know, the M&A firms and the private equity firms and all these, of course, you know, some have earned a reputation for what you said, but also there are a lot of good people out there, and that I think would resonate in the CrossFit community done properly.
Well, I think this is back to my point earlier where I said we have to start thinking differently around what the business looks like from getting back to our grassroots. I got in another online argument. I know that's shocking, but I got an argument today with somebody about private equity, and they're like, name one private equity company that's ever been successful with a business. And I'm like, Dunkin' Donuts is wildly successful. And that was a private equity deal. And as fate would have it, this person's from Boston where Dunkin's located. And they start giving me hell. It's far worse than it was back in the old days. People are losing their jobs. I'm like, hold on. I get that. It's not what you used to get when you walked into the corner store in Boston, but they've opened 2,200 new locations. That's 15,000 jobs they created. That's not a bad thing. Like you break that out by the, how much money that is in payroll. It's like, well over $1 billion probably in payroll that's going back into the economy, that's paying taxes, that's helping those local communities. So yeah, maybe it doesn't have the cigarette stained flavor that Duncan had 25 years ago, but
Right.
and I miss that too, for whatever that's worth, but it's a better
Mhm.
business now. And I think CrossFit could be that. If Don Fall had actually, gotten us to 30 million CrossFitters, would any of us be bitching today?
No.
None.
I Yep.
No one would. The games would be like the Super Bowl because we had 30
Mm.
million CrossFitters. If they'd actually hit that target, every problem would have been solved, and no one would have bitched about the equity group that bought us. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a little ridiculous. I do think the only thing I would add to your list of what that board needs, I would love to see, like, Rich Froning be intimately involved. Austin, like, those guys are brilliant. You've got the Nicole Carrolls of the world that,
Mhm.
they've forgotten more about CrossFit than most of us will ever need. But to your point, I would love to see some real finance bros that have game, right? Finance game, but they're also CrossFitters,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Mhm.
you're one of those guys, man. And there's got to be dozens of them everywhere.
Sure. Yeah. Well, again, I don't want to put myself in the same category. I don't spend my days in private equity deals. I'm a financial advisor. I work with the end user, right? And in the finance world, that's somewhat looked down upon in a lot of circles. But it's a place where I feel like we can have the most impacts working with individuals and their families. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Having folks that really, really care, right? They're involved in CrossFit, they're hard charging, they're passionate about their communities, and they just happen to be really, really great in finance. I think I agree with you 100%. That's what has to be a big part of the scenario.
Yeah. It's definitely a unique, like, mix of individual that you need to make this thing work. And you guys, it's funny because I remember when it was first bought, I heard from a couple people, and this is a direct quote inside the building. He goes, "This person told me, I don't think these guys know what they just bought." And yeah,
Yeah.
that, that did not bode well for anybody.
Not for looking forward and looking at your 5 year or however long they've been involved in your profits and I don't know. I go back and forth in my head all the time about, like, oh, if I was involved, at the highest levels of this, and I say to myself, geez, it has to be, yes, a financial project, but it also has to be a passion project. I think where, CrossFit has to be rebuilt to a certain extent and really put that emphasis back in the affiliates and growing and adding more resources. That's going to take time. And so a firm coming in expecting to change things on a dime, I think is probably a little bit short-sighted, and it's going to take, I have no idea what the books of CrossFit look like right now, but we do see the statistics, right? Of, I don't know, you guys feel this just better than me, probably, of how many affiliates there were at its peak versus how many affiliates there are now. So, anybody can do the math there. I think it's going to take a lot of hard work, like you said, people with some good financial acumen, but those same people that are passionate about the sport and willing to put the work in for a number of years to I hate to say, bring the sport back. I think the sport itself is alive and well. People are still passionate about CrossFit. It's just the business side of things
Yeah.
that I think is the disconnect. Because I always fall into saying, "Oh, I'm going to bring the sport back, and the sport's going to recover." I don't know. I don't see anything wrong with the sport. I think that, yes, there's some more competition out there for sure. That is entered into the arena. Call me crazy. I think that can be ultimately a good thing for CrossFit.
Mhm.
I really do. And there's a lot of great people out there that care deeply about it. And hopefully a firm comes in that understands the principles that need to be in place.
Well, Ben, I got to hop off here, but I just wanted to thank you for your time. I'll let you and John finish off, but it's great seeing you. And
Yeah, great team you get. You doing, peace.
yeah,
See you, buddy.
Likewise.
Yeah, I think that, man, I have so many thoughts on this topic. People have this, like, myth that when Greg ran the company, everything was perfect. And we just need to go back to that. People forget, like, Sean's a great example of this. Sean was caught up in the layoffs when they laid off the media team. He was one of the ones to
Sure.
go, right? That happened under Glassman. They, when they had to get rid of regionals, it did it because they were hemorrhaging money. That happened under Glassman. Like they had significant financial issues early on, even with the massive growth. And none of that's, I'm not judging them. Like that's kind of natural in the state of business. And now people have Berkshire and thinking, well, they've completely mismanaged it. When in reality, a lot of they had to fix a lot of that too.
Fixed, right?
And people underestimate how long that takes. It takes a long time to fix an infrastructure that's broken.
Well, you've been in business a long time, and in particular financial business, right? You've seen businesses, when from the outside looking in, right? You've seen tremendous growth. That doesn't necessarily mean tremendous profit, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And like you said, I think there's some, I'm sure, and again, I have no idea what was going on inside the walls of CrossFit, but I've seen many, many businesses, including experiencing my own, that it can be a challenge, even if the growth is there. It can be a challenge to manage things properly. And when the economy goes through its fluctuations and so on, and you find, no, things aren't as organized as they should be, you can go through periods of time where it can get really, really challenging. And I think that, to your point, I think that that's some of the things that like you gave examples of that happened where, okay, maybe things weren't as rosy and as organized and as headed towards a profitable future as maybe from the outside looking in people thought. And I agree, not knowing, but assuming that, hey, I'm sure Berkshire had to come in and, open things up and say, oh, geez, we've got some things to clean up here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anything about it. I'm speculating like you are, but I don't think they had any idea what they were buying. I think you look at a CrossFit like P&L and it looks like you're printing money on paper until you really start asking questions. You're like, oh, you can just put an affiliate anywhere, including across the street from another affiliate. Oh yeah, you can do that. Well, that's a pretty freaking bad idea. Oh, the affiliate agreement, they can leave at any time. Yeah. There's just not a long contract anytime. All right. That's a pretty big risk to the business, right? Like because that is the one thing that, Frank's completely right about. If the affiliates decided to leave, they could all leave. All they got to do is take the name down. That's it. And that's a monster risk.
Yeah.
To that business. Like they do. That's part of what I think to your, you made the point a couple of times. If they can figure out this real estate thing and how to add more value, meaning you don't have to own the real estate, but if you're a part of the deal somehow, it's way harder for people to leave. And to be fair, you're providing much more value than they're getting before. Now they're, maybe they're not having to negotiate with landlords. Maybe you're doing that on their behalf. I don't know. But the point being, you're taking a significant problem off their hands and you're locking them in and keeping them with your business for a much longer term.
Well, you brought up Dunkin' Donuts, ironically, or interestingly, a few minutes ago. If you look back at, not that I'm an expert in, but if you look back at the history of Dunkin' Donuts, one thing they figured out was the real estate piece. That was a big part that drove Dunkin' Donuts to, where they are today. And yeah, it's still quite the institution in the Northeast, amongst other areas for sure.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm planning to drink plenty of Dunkin' when I'm in Boston this weekend for High Rocks.
That's right. You're going to be here for High Rocks, right?
Yeah, I can't wait. I love Boston, man. I cannot wait to get there. I'll be right downtown, staying at the Omni, just walk over to the convention center, get my butt kicked in the workout and go back. It'll be fun. Last question before we wrap up. I see a guitar on the wall back there. Is that a Martin or a Taylor? What is that thing?
That is so I've got a Taylor downstairs. What is that actually? So not sure what that is. I gotta
It had a Martin look to it from a distance, but I'm way across the room, obviously.
Oh, it's a Washburn. Huh. Yep. There was ones that so the Taylor I got is a really nice Taylor. The Washburn, when you go into a place, it doesn't necessarily sometimes matter how much the guitar is, but you pick a certain one up and it's just got a particular sound to it. And you're like, that sounds amazing. That was the case with that. I think I walked into a Guitar Center one day, I was just exploring around. And literally, I think that was like $300 or $400. And my Taylor's a lot more. And I'm like, am I going crazy or does this sound better than my Taylor?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens sometimes.
And I have a Martin acoustic that I love, and it's the exact same thing. Like when I went in, I think I bought it at Guitar Center now that I think about it. Well, I went into play. I played this Martin, and then I was like, all right, let me play the other Martins up the line. And I got up to their like, $2,500, $3,000 range. This was the 650X series, and for whatever it was, that cheaper guitar fit my hand perfect. It sounded exactly the way I wanted it to sound. It was just beautiful, and it was perfect. And so the same thing. It's like, it's never about the money. It's about how it feels.
Yeah, for sure. You've been playing a long time?
Since I was 12, I have more guitars in this house than I do CrossFit shoes, and that's saying something.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah,
That's what I suppose.
it's ridiculous. I was just telling my daughter last night, I got to thin the herd. I got to start selling some. Like I got a few that are just collecting dust, but you know how they are. They're like your babies, man. You like buy them and you're like, oh, it's just beautiful. I'm going to sit there and look at it. And so they're just here. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
What about you? How long have you played?
I started playing probably when I was in junior high, and then little by little, and then Dave Matthews came onto the scene. It was over for me.
Yeah.
That was one of those deals where, when Live at Luther College came out, I went and learned every song on that. I think it's a double album. On a double album is just amazing. And John Mayer at that time and all this. So yeah, always acoustics. I rarely picked up an electric in my life. Cool when I do pick them up. It's like,
Yep.
but yeah, love the acoustic.
You're hitting all my idols. I've seen John Mayer 3 times in the last 2 years. And every time I see that guy, I walk away going, man, I'm just going to quit. I'm giving up guitar. It's like working out with Rich Froning. You're just like, what am I doing? Like, I can't do what this guy does. And it's the same thing. It's like, he's so far beyond anything I'm capable of. I can't even understand it. It's unreal.
Yeah, he's especially, he's a former Berkeley music guy. I think he spent a year or so, if I'm not mistaken, in Berkeley here in Boston. So, but yeah, he's a legend for sure.
Yeah, he's something else. Well, listen, man, thanks for joining us. This has been super fun, educational for me. I don't know if we bored the hell out of Sean or not, but I love talking finance. I'd love to have you back on anytime we have, any kind of financial gig or something comes up within, this thing's going to sell soon. So when it does, I'd love to speculate some more if you got some time for us.
Oh, sure. No, it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate you having me on. Great talking to you guys.
Anytime. Well, for everyone listening, we appreciate you guys joining, and Sean and I will be back next week.